The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network.
Good afternoon. I'm Doc D.
I'm Michelle,
and we are the Mangums.
We want to welcome you to Straight Talk About the Blended Family.
We appreciate you tuning in to us today, and we pray that we will give you a fresh perspective on how to allow your blended family to mesh and to blend well. Welcome to another opportunity and another segment of Straight Talk About the Blended Family. I am Doc D.
I'm Michelle, and we are the Mangums.
Thank you for joining us today. We have a riveting show for you all. We pray that you tune in. But before we go forward, you know how we do here at Straight Talk About the Blended Family. We're going to have a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for this amazing day. We come before your throne, asking you, God, just to help us to do exactly what you called us to do on this assignment today, God. As we speak about divided loyalties, whose side are you on? We ask you to bless our listeners, bless everything that's going to take place in the precious name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All right. So we want to do our thank you shout outs. We want to thank the Lord for affording us this opportunity and for using us to be a blessing to people, because everything that we do on this show is to help your blended family be awesome, okay? Just like our blended family is. We know a lot of people don't think that the blended family can succeed, but it can. We're here to let you know that it can. If we can do it, you can do it. So we want to thank the Lord just for affording us this opportunity. We want to thank Lionel Green and the WBGR staff here, comedian Coy, who's our technician. And we just producer, technician, and we just want to thank everybody here for their support.
Yes.
We want to thank our prayer warriors who are praying for us and praying for the show at Imagine Me Family Worship Center, as well as the other prayer groups that we are with. We want to thank those who are supporters, those who share the show. We know a lot of people are sharing the show because they have family members who are in blended families. They have friends who are in blended families. And they know that there's something that we're going to say that's going to be a blessing to that family as well as yours. So we just want to thank you. We appreciate you all for tuning in, as well as doing watch parties. We heard some of y'all doing watch parties and sharing it and getting the show out there. We really appreciate that. If you want to call in today, today's title is Divided Loyalties.
Yes. Whose side are you on? What a question.
Yes,
what a question.
Yes. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to make a comment on Facebook, or you can call in at 301-429-9247. If that line is busy, you can call 301-306-7284. Again, that's 301-429-9247. And if that line is busy, you can call 301-306-7284. So, in today's segment, we want to explore the challenges and heartache surrounding the subject of divided loyalties within the blended family, step family. As you know, the meshing of the blended step family is often a difficult task based on the pain associated with a divorce or separation that affects everyone involved, but more importantly, the child or children who are often caught in the middle of the craziness.
Wow. Divided loyalties.
Yes.
I am so excited today for a lot of different reasons, because we have talked to many people that's going through this process of the step family, blended family, but we want to talk about some points. Many experts who have studied the surrounding blended family, step family integration process, when they're starting to mesh, the process deals with anger, which is normally at the top of the list. When a blended family or when a family divorces, or a husband and a wife divorces, the kids are often left in the middle of the casualties. And so therefore, it's really, really important that they be put in a situation to where they understand that they don't have to be caught off guard. They don't have to be put in a place to where it's really unhealthy. So today, what we want to do, we want to unpack this thing, because we recognize that emotions are very high when there is a divorce. Secondly, it is natural when parents remarry, especially after divorce, to seem like divided loyalties become normal for the child or children that are caught in the middle. In other words, divorce can be the breathing ground of divided loyalties. One of the points I often emphasize when counseling couples, which has went through separation or divorce, is not to use your children as pawns. My wife and I, we recognize that it's so important that you don't allow your situation to get to the place that where you are dealing with divorce, or where your kids are going through the process of being in a place of remarried, where you have a new mom, a new dad. And what happens there is that there is disloyalty because the kids are pushed this way and that way, because the parents are still dealing with their own anger issues. They're dealing with the separation, the divorce, the pain of divorce, the grief of divorce. And so one thing I try to tell them, don't allow your kids, or don't put your kids in a position to where they become pawns of your divorce.
Yes.
Don't make them feel like they're responsible for what happened with the adults. Next point, babe. Read about don't share. Down there, don't share.
Don't share negative things about the other parent in order to gain a child or your child's attention, affection, or loyalty.
Let me drive on that for a minute, honey. One of the things that we know that happens is that when there is a divorce and the children, especially if you become the custodial parent, and the children live with you and they don't live with the other parent. So what happens is that there's a lot of times, because of the unresolved issues, the unresolved hurts, the children are put in a place that where they really become the nesting ground for all of your anger, for all of your ugliness, and the kids end up becoming the dumping ground. Let me just keep it 100. They become the dumping ground of the adults' bitterness and the pain. And a lot of time this creates divided loyalty. This becomes separation or disingenuous attitudes that allow division to take place. And we use our kids, let's be honest, we use our kids to get back at the divorced mom or the divorced dad, the ex-husband or the ex-wife, because we didn't get the custody. We didn't win the custody battle. So what we do, we poison these children with all of these negative things about the other parent. And you know what? It's unfortunate because the children are not able psychologically, mentally, or even emotionally to handle all of this grief, all of this bitterness that you're pouring on them. And so
they are not mature enough to handle.
And we do this.
That adult stuff.
Yeah, baby, we do this because we're trying to gain that loyalty. We're trying to gain that affection. And so what we do, we put these kids in position to make them feel that they have to take sides. Whenever you do this to a child, you really do them an emotional, and I believe a psychological, and even a spiritual disservice.
Yes.
Because now you allow a child or children to have to choose to really both of the parents that they love. Listen,
absolutely.
Divorce happens, remarriages happens.
Yes.
So what we have to understand is that if we're part of the problem, we're not part of the solution. And the next one,
honey, sometimes parents get jealous of the parent that's no longer in the home, gets jealous of the new person that comes on because they don't want their child to love that person.
Yeah, that's a great point.
They want to penalize the other parent, and they don't want that child to love it. Love is so free. Love is free, and it doesn't take away anything from you. Your child will always love you, but if you continue to say negative things, to pour in negative things, you're going to get that back someday.
Yeah, and
when
you're right.
When those kids get teenagers, when those kids get young adults, when those kids get grown, they're going to realize, because then they're going to start having conversations with their other parent, and they're going to realize all that bad stuff, that you said about my other parent. You came in between them and that parent. Every child needs their mother and their father.
Yes,
tell them why they need their mother and their father.
Well, I think the reality is that as a dad, you set the identity platform for your children.
Absolutely.
As a mom, you set the nurturing and you set the tenderness and the love. But when there is a divorce, let's be honest, blended families are far from a loss, and a divorce takes place. And another thing that happens with the divorce process, one parent or both parents decide to date somebody else. And so now the kids have to adjust maybe to the new person that's in their lives. They haven't gotten married yet, but because you haven't won the custody battle, you get to see your kids once every 2 weeks or every other weekend, whatever the case or the court sets in place, that you get to see your kids, and the child that's the custodial parent get to see the kids every day. But why do we pull the kids in a situation? Because we're still angry, because we're still bitter, because we're not being honest with ourselves. Because if you're really honest with yourself, and let's be truthful about this, you and your husband created the space for divorce.
Absolutely.
Created the issues. We all got issues.
Absolutely.
When you go through a divorce, when you go through a separation, I know a lot of people may not agree with this, but there's some underlying issue with both of those. People just don't break up by osmosis. They break up because there's been some issues, there's been some underlying factors that we haven't adjusted to or that we haven't come clean with. Yes, I understand that a lot of divorces take place because of infidelity. I get that. But listen, most of us as adults, when we get in an adult relationship, if we have not cultivated that relationship in the right way, and we have problems and we don't deal with the conflict in the right way, then we end up in a bad place. This ultimately ends in divorce or separation. And children are involved. Children, again, they become the casualties of these adults' behaviors. And so when a parent decides, their divorced parent decides to date and then they decide to remarry, the kids are pulled into this conundrum, if you will, or this whole platform of craziness, and it doesn't stop because, like my wife stated earlier, jealousy takes place. And then what we do, we often tell people, my wife and I, when we counsel with these people that are in this place, don't use the blame game to persuade or pressure your child or your children to take sides, because in doing so, you set your children up in harboring ill feelings or targeting the other parent as the bad parent, or forcing them to believe that they were responsible for breaking up the family. How many times, I know personally how many times that I've dealt with people, or even dealt with my own situation coming out of divorce, where there was things said to our children that had nothing to do with them, that had to do with the adults involved. And one of the things I made a decision that I would not badmouth the other parent or badmouth my ex, because in front of the kids or even in a private place, because you never know, kids are listening.
That's right.
And they don't need a lot of help to start feeling bad about a situation.
And plus, you damage their spirit. You damage their spirits when you do that. No child wants to hear you bantering and bad-mouthing their other parent. They love both of y'all. All kids love both parents. They would prefer both parents be together. But if that can't be the fact, then, you cannot have all these negative words and body language and everything that you pouring into these kids. They're not emotionally mature enough to handle it, and you scar them. Sometimes they're scarred for years.
Yeah, and my wife is right, but during the course of my study and during the course of me being in the blended family, even getting my PhD and writing my dissertation on the influence of the blended family, I had the opportunity to read several books. And one book I came across as I was preparing this show, I read this book probably in 2013. I read this book by a riveting book by a Dr. Darnell Douglas. Douglas Darnell. And his book is entitled Divorce Casualties: Protecting Your Children from Parental Alienation. He offers incredible insight into helping the divorced parents to protect the children from parental alienation. He gives this quote that gives an excellent example of what parental alienation looked like. He says, when I'm through telling the judge what you've been up to, you'll be lucky if he lets you say so much as hello to the kids. And he gives this because what happens is that we begin to alienate our children. Most of the time, the alienation really takes place out of a bad custody battle. The parent the non-custodial parent gets to pay child support. If you have minors, if you have children 18 and under, you pay child support. And a lot of different things goes on in that courtroom scene. And so the kids are placed in a situation where they are alienated, a lot of times intentionally, but a lot of times unintentionally, because here's the thing: we want to gain this competitive spirit to let the child that's not living, or the children's not living with the custodial parent, when the children rather are living with the custodial parent, we want to make them feel that your mom or dad was to blame, and that you should not really be appreciative, or you should badmouth who I'm dating now, or who the mom or dad. It becomes such a vicious cycle that where the kids are put on notice to react the way the adults react, and that should never be. In this book, Dr. Darnell really opens up a lot of different things, and I took some things out of his book because I wanted to share with you some of the things that he dropped in his book to help us to understand that we need to pivot from this behavior, this mentality, through divorce, and revenge and all these other things come in. He also says parental alienation is focused on how the alienating parents behave towards the children and the target parent. Wow, if you're not the parent, the custodial parent, you become the target parent. Wow, what's unfortunate is that the other parent has a bullseye on their back as being the bad parent, the parent that created this whole craziness. Honey, you want to say something about that?
Well, when you like I can't stress enough that when you are the target parent, first of all, that's not cool to put the kids in that place, like I said. And let me say this: God is not pleased with this behavior. Just so y'all know, God is not pleased with this behavior. I don't know whether whether you worry about that or not, but He's not pleased with that behavior. And I know you hurt, you're angry, I know that. But sometimes people grow apart. Sometimes things happen, and we're not condoning divorce. We're not condoning separation. We're willing to counsel to try to help your marriage succeed. However, if things are to the point where y'all no longer want to be with each other, number one, I would never want to be with somebody that don't want to be with me. And number two, to involve the kids in adult stuff, saying negative things, because bitterness, you're talking about bitterness, anger, hatred. You are setting your child up to experience all these emotions that might very well cause them to go to hell. That would be on your conscience. Would you really want that? I don't think you would really want that.
That's really eye-opening. And I know this show is not really going to be one of the shows that people want to listen to and hear.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
This is a heavy
necessary.
show. But we got to deal with some of the necessary evils so that you can rise up out that pit that you're in. Absolutely. Let me tell you about parental. Dr. Darnell talks about parental alienation is any pattern of behaviors, whether conscious or unconscious, that could invoke or suggest a disturbance in the relationship between the child and the other parent. Wow. If you are the parent that's causing disturbance, that causing your child or children to dislike the ex-husband or the ex-wife, and you are leading the charge, you're setting your children up for emotional and psychological failure. Absolutely. You're also making them feel like you feel. You also allowing this seed of hatred and unforgiveness to manifest itself. Yes. I know it's hot, but this is straight talk about the blended family, because I don't want you to think that it's okay that you have this behavior, that you have this parental alienation, and that you're living in it and that you're enjoying it. It is not a place you want to be. No. But because we are still walking around with unresolved hurt, because maybe your ex-husband or ex-wife remarried and they happy, and your kids are seemingly that they're happy, but you don't want them to be happy. You want them to be built like you're built, because you're still dealing with your own issues and your own unforgiveness. And I'm really hot on this thing because I've seen it happen. I've seen what it has done to children. And the thing about parental alienation it carries on throughout their lives. They live with this, and they also have these seeds growing up when they get in a relationship, when they get in a marriage.
Absolutely.
That these things that you have planted in them
Absolutely.
have created this monster inside of them, to where now when something goes wrong, when there's a conflict, when there's a disagreement and you're disagreeable, we go this route. We accept parental alienation. Let me move forward. To take the disturbance to another level through the vehicle of parental alienation syndrome, Dr. Richard Garner suggested the children are preoccupied with the depreciation and criticism of the parent's vilification. In other words, you make the other parent a villain. You pour all of this negative, all of this degrading things about the other parent, when you know what, actually a lot of this stuff you're saying to your kids, because again, you're trying to gain alliances. You're trying to point out all the bad things that the other parent did, and you try to make it seem that you have been exonerated and that you had no fault in what took place in the disconnection of the relationship. But we do that. Come on, let's be honest.
And let's be honest, because it takes two. Okay, it takes two. Not one person. One person can't make a marriage work. It does take two. Now, you cannot very well say that it's just your ex-spouse or spouse's problem, or you know that, or that's the reason why y'all not together anymore. It takes two.
You're right, babe.
And sometimes there are people in this world who will bring out the best in you. And sometimes there's people that will bring out the worst in you. So you need to sit back and ask yourself, how am I affecting my spouse? Am I bringing out the worst in him or her, or am I bringing out the best in him or her? If you're bringing out the worst, I'm going to tell you right now, it is not going to work. It's not going to work if you're bringing out the worst in your spouse. That's not what you there for.
Definitely,
you know,
babe.
y'all supposed to bring out the best in each other.
And you know, again, sometimes we got to have these conversations with you.
Yes.
And we got to discuss things that are uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
For you and even for us. But we understand that our whole goal with this show, with this ministry, is to bring a light to where you are, so you don't have to live in it, so you don't have to sit in those things that are not healthy, those things that does not benefit the children, benefit each other. Dr. Garner, he says that most of the parental alienation syndrome, when it really rises, is when their custody battles are heated. When you don't get what you want and you got to pay money. Or let me drop back for a minute. Let me scale back. If the person that you were married to made a decision to move on with their lives and they're now connected to somebody else, you still want somebody to pay. Or you think they didn't pay enough. You think the severity of losing their house, maybe losing their job, maybe losing a lot of their credibility because the divorce was ugly, because the divorce was very just gut-wrenching. And sometimes we try to play God and say, well, they didn't suffer enough. That wasn't enough for them. And so when we get into the court system, when we're trying to get custody and the custody doesn't go our way, that's when my wife said the real you come out. The real pain, the real ugliness, the real unresolved hurt comes out. But the kids, again, the children involved become the casualties of your behavior.
And you know, God is the one that handles the results of everything that we go through in this life. And we're supposed to give stuff over to him. So you cannot, listen, you do yourself a disservice. Now your ex-spouse, they done remarried and they happy, and you still walking around bitter and angry, you know, and having all kinds of negativity spew out. Now, do you know that if you got yourself together and you allowed the Lord to massage your heart and to heal you, do you know that he could provide you with who you're supposed to be with as well? Sometimes we get in these relationships and these marriages and we don't consult God first. We don't ask God, is this the person for me? We don't ask him that. We just think, oh, well, yeah, I'm in love. I'm just doing this, you know. Yeah, and then you get involved, and then later on down the line, y'all realize, okay, this was not God's choice.
Yeah,
this was me. This was my thing. I did this.
It's the reality of it.
And then it's too late by then. It's too late by then. And then, so, you know, so don't get ugly with the behavior. You know, don't get nasty. Don't get bitter. You know, Let God heal you so that you can be whole. Because once you're whole, then he can introduce you to who you're really meant to be with.
And you know, the
Right?
reason you're
That's
right,
what
babe.
happened with us.
The
That's
reason
what happened with us.
I
We
think
have a wonderful marriage. We couldn't
Yes.
listen. Go ahead, honey.
I want to finish this because I need to
finish it.
drop this stuff on us today.
Absolutely.
Because I want to see you better.
Absolutely.
Dr. Gardner, he simply says that in a nutshell is that the custodial parent is really brainwashing the children or the child that's with them against the target parent. You're telling them all these things that are unhealthy. You're setting a platform for them to really set the other parent up. You know, sometimes this is what happens. We play this game. The custodial parent, we play this game. Listen, I'm not going to buy you anything. Let your dad or your mom buy you the things that you want. I'll buy you the expensive things. Knowing that maybe the dad or mom don't have the financial wherewithal to get those things. But what you do, you make the child feel bad because when the other person cannot provide, you're setting them up to really go against that person that's not in the home, that mom or dad. And then you allow them, if you get married again, you allow them to really be untrusting of the new person that may be in their mom or dad's life that's not in the house. And so you're building all of these walls with your children of animosity, hatred, and these things. I know these some hard words, but see, I know this happens. This parental alienation is a real thing, and it's also a thing that I feel that's causing more children problems. One study said that when the parental alienation reaches its highest peak, children struggle with their schoolwork. They have struggle with comprehension.
Yes.
They struggle with getting friends, and their social behavior begins to wane.
Absolutely.
Because they're carrying all of this weight, all of this burden of while their mom and their dad that's not living there, or their ex, are not together. You're allowing your kids, you're dumping all of the garbage on your children, and they have to carry this weight.
Yes. And not only that, it's not cool to tell your child to purposely disrespect another adult.
Yeah, you create that environment.
That's
I think
not
you
cool.
create that environment.
Because once they start disrespecting their bonus parent, then they're going to start disrespecting the teacher. Then they're going to start disrespecting, whoever else that they come across. Then, eventually, they're going to disrespect you. I know you pouring all this into them, and you think, I'm getting my way, they causing all kinds of chaos, but it comes back. What you do comes back. So please, if you need counseling, get counseling. If you need, to just ask God to help you with whatever you're going through, please, by all means, say the prayer. Get that healing process started. You don't want to poison your children against their other parent. It will come back on you.
I thank you, babe.
Mm-hmm.
I am so excited about this subject matter, because the thing is that people are gonna get healed, people are gonna get better. Yes. But let me move forward, because I really want to hone into what we want to talk about today. What I love about Dr. Darnell was that he opened up some realistic transparency of the people. No, the names were changed, but their situation and circumstances for how they created parental alienation. And parental alienation is nothing but a byproduct of divided loyalties. It really creates the division. It creates the separation. It creates the disconnection from the parents and the children, the parents, and even children and their other siblings. This thing it begins to downshift, or it goes downwind, and affects the other children with their brothers and sisters, because they see what's going on, and so that same type of attitude or spirit falls on them. Factors contributing to parental alienation. 3 factors he talks about in his book. The first one is custodial litigation. It creates the whole premise for parental alienation. Both parents want custody. align yourself with the children to win the custody battle. Number 3, 3 points. First one, both parents want custody. Second one, align yourself with the child or children to win the custody battle. 3, temptation to degrade your ex-spouse, partner in your child's presence. This happens all the time when you deal with parental alienation. You want to make the other parent look bad, look small, look responsible, look guilty. And so what you do, you take on this whole mantra that I'm going to break them down in front of the other parent. And when you do that, and most parents, let me keep it 100, you're going to defend yourself. And I know you're going to forget the kids are there, but you're going to defend yourself. After, you can only take so much beat down before you come out. You're going to back this tiger in the corner. The tiger been quiet. The tiger haven't said nothing, or the tigress hasn't said nothing. But, you know, you get sick and tired, and enough is enough, and you're going to come out. But look who's watching. Your child or your children, you're watching, so you're breaking their heart over and over again.
And they are seeing you. This is something for you to think about. Your child is seeing you at your worst. They're seeing you at your worst. They already know you're hurt. They already know you're angry. And then they're hearing all of this negativity that you're putting in their mind, in their spirit.
Yeah, I hope that we're making sense today. Yes. Because we got to quit playing this game.
Because it affects all aspects of life. It affects their school. When their grades start plummeting, you're going to be wondering why. Well, it's because of you. You putting all this negative stuff in them.
Yeah, you're right, babe. I think the reality is that we have to expose. That's why this show is like it is today. We got to expose this stuff that's carrying on with our kids. And we wonder why our kids haven't broke out and really walk in their greatness in the blending of our step family. We want to, because we've been hiding this stuff, or they've been holding on to this stuff.
Yes.
Listen, I'm not saying every blended family went through parental alienation. I'm not saying every blended family was formed from a terrible divorce or something that was really ugly. What I'm saying is that it's more often than not that these behaviors are lifted up in the parents that don't have the custodial parental rights of having the children live with them. Let me deal with this. Let me move. There are 3 types of parental alienators. Naive alienators, parents who generally are passive about the children's relationship with the other parent, but will occasionally do or say something to alienate. Are you that person that's always passive? You let things go on. You let things just happen. You don't say nothing because you don't want conflict. All conflict is not bad.
Not at all.
And so the reality is that you're setting a precedence. You need to say something. Some of you are just too passive. Some of you know that ex-parent or that former, not ex-parent, but the ex-husband or ex-wife, you know that they raise Cain all the time. But sometimes you got to step up to the mic and say, listen, let's pull aside. Let's have this conversation. And you need to step to them. You need to tell them what they're doing is wrong.
That's
what
right.
they're doing is causing our children to be broken.
Yes.
We're breaking their spirits. You're breaking their spirits because you're coming at me. And you know what? Unfortunately, because you're not stepping up, your children think that you're weak. They think that you don't care about them because you're not standing up against the your former husband or your former wife. And listen, if you're afraid of that person, take somebody with you that's going to be able to witness if anything goes wrong. But you need to step up because you're too passive. But we talked about this earlier. Here's where you go off. When you had let that stuff bound you up and you unsuppressed it, and they hit that final button, they hit that final trigger, and you explode.
Yes.
Why not deal with the conflict or deal with that behavior, not the same way the other person deal with, but confront it?
Yes.
One of the things that I believe that allow the blended family to be successful and to soar is to confront those issues that are hot topics.
And I found that when you confront your ex-spouse, and you tell them you're hurting our child by saying all these nasty negative things about me, or you're hurting our child, by trying to get them to dislike my new spouse. You know what I mean? Yes. Like, they're not mature enough to handle this adult stuff. So it's very important to have these conversations, even if you think it's going to be tough. You know, there are some conflicts in life that there's some subjects that we have to discuss. You know, especially if you're raising a child and you're in two separate households. There's conversations that have to be had. They really are.
Because the benefits.
Yeah, and you don't have to be nasty when you do it. You know,
I think the benefits outweigh the things that are not beneficial when you confront it. And that's what he was talking about with the naive. You're not really naive. You're just passive.
Right.
And a lot of us are passive aggressive. And before we know it, we're more aggressive than passive because we have allowed this stuff to build. The next one is active alienators. No better than to alienate, but their intense hurt or anger causes them to impulsively lose control over their behavior or what they say. Woo! We active. We always got something going on, but because we haven't gotten counseling, because we haven't dealt with that hurt, or because we haven't dealt with it seriously. Let me say this intentionally. You got to intentionally ask God or ask some counselor or ask your pastor to help you through the process.
Absolutely.
Because, listen, you're still dealing with it. And again, the kids are the recipient of your intense hurt or your brokenness. And you become alien. And what happened, you begin to alienate the kids because you're walking around with this stuff. You got to release it. Release it to God.
Yes.
I know it's easier said than done.
Free yourself.
Because I'm not in your situation. I'm not in that space. But what I've realized is that if we don't do something about that mindset of that hurt, we're going to allow toxicity to ruin our home, to ruin our kids.
Yes.
The next one.
Yes.
Obsessed alienators have a fervent cause to destroy the targeted parent. Wow. Frequently, a parent can be blended between two types of alienators, usually a combination between naive and active. Rarely does the obsessed alienator have enough self-control or insight to blend with other types. And basically, as an obsessed alienator, you're doing everything possible to destroy the target parent. Your mouth, your words, the things that you're saying to your kids, the things that you're saying to the other people, the in-laws, you're blaming everybody. You're growing a group. You may even be on Facebook talking about your farmer husband or your farmer wife. You want to gain a crowd. You want to gain a whole troop to be on your side. And see, the thing about that thing said fervent. That means that you are on a mission. You're on a diabolical assignment to destroy.
And you would not want your ex-spouse to reveal some stuff about you that went on in your relationship either. You know what I mean? So don't badmouth on Facebook. Don't go off and you know, put them out like that, because they can, I'm sure, listen, if y'all been married for more than a year, I'm sure that they can reveal some stuff about y'all too. And you wouldn't want that. You know what I mean? So do unto others. Don't do that. Just, you know, listen, let them go. Why you want to hold on to a relationship that may not be, you know,
and I think
God ordained for you.
I think also, babe, on the other hand, I think that the parental alienation, we talked about, it stems from unresolved hurt and pain.
It does.
And disagreement.
That's why I said
we
understand that there's hurt going on. We understand that there's pain. But at some point in time, you have to get healed. You have to get freed, because if you don't, it's going to damage you. It's going to damage your children. And you won't be able to have another relationship. You won't be able to go into another relationship, not without bringing that baggage with you. So it's very important that you get freed up, you know, like I said. And like we always say, we don't condone divorce, you know, but it happens. It's life. You know, things happen and people get divorced, you know. But, you know, it's very important not to involve the kids in that negativity.
And I know we're working on it, but I wanted to, you know, if you found yourself as a naive alienator, an active alienator, or obsessed alienator, take some inventory.
Yes.
Because, you know, the fruit that you're bearing is going to spoil emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually.
Absolutely.
Because you're taking the wrong road. Absolutely. Listen, I'm not trying to be super spiritual. My wife is not trying to be super spiritual. Mm-hmm. But sit back and reflect.
Yeah.
And look at your children's behavior, whether the child is living with you or not. Look at the gap that you're creating between the non-living parent are the non-living parents.
Yes.
Look at what you're doing to the whole family. See, when people go through a divorce and remarry, it doesn't just affect the couple that divorced. It affects the children. It affects the cousins. It affects the grandparents. It affects everyone. My honest goal, our honest goal rather, is for you to understand that these effects affect everybody involved. And guess what? We don't have to be the instrument of disaster. We can be the instrument of harmony and hope. And yes, that's why the blended family experts say that it normally takes 3 to 6 years for a blended family to mesh, because we got to weed to all these things. Let me tell you something. The blended family can be successful. Your blended family can be successful. You can turn this alienation around and become reconnected and reunited and take a different perspective if you're willing to get serious help.
And if you are the bonus parent, if you have married into this blended family system and you are the bonus parent, if your spouse and their ex is not getting along for the sake of raising that child, all y'all together raising that child, try to reach out to that parent and see if you can form a bond with that parent. Because if you can form a bond with that parent, then you can be the go-between. You know what I mean?
Or you can serve as a buffer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can serve as a buffer. I agree with my wife 100%.
You can be the listen. We've done it. We know people have done it. You can be the buffer, and that person can come to you instead of going to them if they know that them two clash. If y'all clashing, then that bonus parent could be the one that could be the buffer between
whether
you
you're male or female, whether you're the bonus mom or bonus dad. What my wife is saying,
it works with either one, male or female.
Yeah, and I would say this in the caveat on what my wife was saying about being the buffer. I want to say this: pray about it. Number one, if you're a believer.
Yes.
And number two, have the conversation with the custodial parent. Say, this is what I think. I'd just like to give this a shot, so that we can stem all of the craziness and stem all the anger and stem all the bitterness. I want to kind of be, since I love you and I love your kids, I love your children that live with you, and I love your children that don't live with you. And I really want to, if possible, have a civil relationship with your ex.
Yes.
Because I think the reality is that we want to help raise these children together. I'm not trying to take her place. I'm not trying to take his place.
Right.
But I know because of my spirit, the bonus parent, that I think I can kind of cause a buffer to where we can settle down some of the things that are taking place that are really hurting the children. And so I really think that my wife really hit on something, and it's going to take courage. It's going to take faith, and you're going to have to kind of step out there and ask God to give you all of those things. But I truly believe that we don't take measures to turn a negative situation into a positive because we said, well, these are not my biological kids, or so I really don't get involved. But you're involved. You married the husband or the wife, and you're involved. You remarried, so you're involved. And I know it takes time, and I know you have to not ask for permission, but ask for them to understand that the goal here's the goal. That the kids get healed, that the kids forgive, that you forgive, that you be better. And so I think the reality is that I know it's going in your mind. Let me answer this question. I know this question. Do all families that even in relationships in a divorce where it's not crazy, that it ends, I'm going to use this word kind of lightly, friendly, but I know some people that have divorced in a civil manner, and they're still friends.
Absolutely.
They went through their time of pain and disconnection. They're friends. The kids, they're all connected. The kids get together on certain times. The biological kids and the bonus kids, and they're building this thing. Again, this is a process that takes place when everyone comes together and say, listen, we want to be better for everybody. Don't just be better for the new husband or the new wife or just the children. Be better for everybody because everybody deserves to be better. Everybody deserves to be healed. And so, yes, we all deal with some type of parental alienation just because the nature of the business of step family, blended family. But here's the thing. It's said to happen consciously and unconsciously. But we really, with the help of God, can really cause this thing to be stopped. We can really cause this thing to be limited, rather, and stopped. But again, understand that it's not going to happen overnight. And so, today, we've had a blast. We're getting ready to close. It's some things that I wrote down. No, we got time. I know, but I want to kind of breathe you in. Yeah, I already talked about that.
Okay.
Go ahead. You go ahead, baby. I already talked about. I already drove that. I already drove in that car.
Okay, well,
I know.
Right here.
We not getting off air yet, baby. I'm just getting ready because I'm ready to springboard. We
way
got
you
15
said
minutes. Oh, we got 15 minutes. But you know, I like to set you up because here's the reality of it. My wife and I truly believe that any situation that you have, divided loyalties, whose side are you on? That can be changed with the right attitude, with the right spirit, with the right help. You know, and so because my wife and I have been married for 15 plus years, we've been in blended family for a long time. I've been in blended family for 3 generations, and I've seen some situations take place with kids, even my own biological kids, that happened when I got divorced from their mom. Some things happened, the alienation happened. I don't think it was intentionally. I think it happened because that's the nature of humanity. That's the nation when people are broken, when things go kind of crazy. The kids, if children are there, unfortunately, they become the scapegoat. But once you learn better, and once you're educated, and once you see some of the factors that happen with parental alienation, you do your best prayerfully to do the right thing and not to repeat that history.
Yes.
Because it's a generational thing. And we have to deal with the generational thing before it gets legs and life and arms. And so
and so for me, I never, even though you know, me and my son's father got divorced, I never badmouthed him in front of my son. Never. So when my son got grown, you know, then he came and asked me, and you know, and we had a conversation.
Yeah, but same for me,
but prior to that, you know, never. And even when I did, you know, I still wasn't in bash mode, you know.
Yeah.
So it's very important that you take the high road, you know, because you wouldn't want your ex to badmouth you to your kids. You know what I mean? So why would you do that?
I'm going to give you some principles that I believe will allow you to change how you perceive and your perspective about walking in divine. I mean, why am I saying
my
divine?
husband's always saying
divided
pivot.
loyalties. But these principles, I believe, will help you pivot if you apply them to your current situation.
Yes.
And don't look at me crazy. Don't look at my wife crazy. I know you're dealing with some divided loyalties and whose side you're on your kids. They may even be adults and they still feeling the brunt of what took place in that blended family, that stepfamily house.
And if you are a bonus parent and you are dealing with this situation, your spouse's ex is causing chaos or trying to get the kids not to like you, just listen. Keep being a mentor. Don't feed into that. Don't argue with them. Don't jump in on that bandwagon. You want to make sure that you are kind to that child, that you are being a mentor to that child, you're being a coach to that child as much as you can.
Yes.
You know, it will level out. They will, you know, most of the times it takes somebody else, it takes them to get remarried themselves, you know, for it to level out.
Yeah, for them to experience a different life.
Yeah,
and basically what my wife is saying is that you have opportunity.
Yes.
And you have a beautiful opportunity to cause a shift in how things are. Yes. And you have to be the conduit to call the shift.
And have a conversation with that parent. Like I said, have a conversation with them and let them know, I don't appreciate, you know, I'm not the one that, you know, caused your marriage to be gone, you know, didn't even know him. You know, and I don't appreciate you bad mouthing me to your child. You know, it's hurting your child. You know, they're hurt because you're being negative.
Yes.
You know, and you wouldn't want me to bad mouth, you know, you to your child. You know, so if we can just, you know, be mature adults, you know, and come up with some ways to raise the child together, that would be awesome. You know, let's help them be whole.
We want to educate you and give you some principles, I believe, and most of these principles came out of my book. Blending to make it ingredients for a successful blended family, because I talk about divided loyalties in my book in one chapter. Know that children who are victims of divorce already have enough to deal with, and they really don't need to be pushed into a corner to see which parent they will love or hate.
Exactly.
They really don't need to be pushed into a corner
That's not fair to them.
to figure out who they're going to love or hate, because in reality, they love you both.
They love you both.
And the reality, too, is that if you push them in the corner, they may end up hating you down the road because you kept them away from their mom or their dad, or you gave them all this poison about their mom or dad. And that, and so you really got to understand the importance that we don't want our kids to be put into this corner. So let me give you this. Number one, it is your responsibility as a divorced parent or parents to ensure that your children hear the healthy things about your ex-spouse. It is your responsibility. Don't blame it on the other parent. I'm giving you the opportunity today. We're giving you the opportunity to take ownership.
And sometimes kids think it's their fault that things didn't work out between y'all. So when you're spewing all this negative stuff about their other parent, that just doubles their emotional breakdown. They're like, oh my God, I caused my parents, and it's not their fault. They had nothing to do with it. So, sit down, have a conversation, and just say, you know what, both of us love you. Things just didn't work out between us, but we both love you.
Yeah,
that needs to be
my wife made me think about something.
What?
When I was growing up, and it was a divorce or separation, and the child that's in the house, the custodial child that's in the house with the custodial parent, and do something bad or get in trouble in school, the first thing that the parent says, you just like your mother, you just like your father. Well, hello, they have 50% of each of you's DNA. So they're going to act like you.
That's right.
They're going to act like the ex-husband or the ex-wife.
That's right.
And so when you pour that on them, you also give them more trouble or more burden them down, because you tell them you just like your father, you just like your mother.
And if you ask your mother, or your father how you were as a child, trust me, you're going to see some of them same attributes in your kids. I'm telling you right now, kids are 50% of both their parents' DNA.
Next point. Your children will eventually draw their own conclusions about both parents, and they will choose what to or what not to believe about the parents.
Absolutely.
Or what you said, that once they get older, they probably already got it now. They seen enough, they heard enough, and they with their dad, and their dad acts nothing like you said he acts, or the mother acts like nothing that you said they act, and they don't talk about you, they don't talk about the mom or the dad, and they're finding out that, hold on, maybe there's some things that mom is not telling me that's positive about that, and I'm seeing a different light. Kids will draw their own conclusions when they get older.
Yes, they will.
So you don't have to rev it up how bad their dad was or how bad their mom was, because sooner or later they're going to sit back and they're going to reflect on all the things that you said. They're going to say, well, you know what? They're not as bad as my mom made him out to be, or my father made her out to be.
That's right.
You can read the next one.
Don't pour all of the hurt or anger from your divorce on your child or children. Doing so prevents the children from experiencing their own relationship from a challenging and healthy perspective. Again, we said it a little earlier. You damage your kids for the future when you bring them in on this negativity between that you and their biological parent, their other biological parent. If things don't work out with you and their biological parent, listen, by all means, please don't bring the kids in on that. They're not mature enough to handle it. And you want them to love you. You want them to love their other parent. And even though y'all have grown apart and may not be together anymore, listen, let God heal you. Because when you spew all that negativity and vengeance and revenge and negative behavior, ugly behavior, I'm telling you right now, not only will it come back onto you, but if you think God is going to bless you with a spouse, with a new spouse, with your behavior, he's not going to do that. He's not going to have you messing up somebody else, and that's not of God. That negativity is not of God. Please don't involve children in your negativity.
And you want as a children grows up and they've been in that environment, they face parental alienation. You want them to be able to draw their own conclusions about their relationships, even if they have challenges. you want to give them an opportunity to have a healthy perspective, have a healthy outcome.
Absolutely.
Not just carry around your weight for years.
Absolutely. And not only that, sometimes when kids carry around your burdens and stuff with you, they also it affects their relationships in the future.
Yes.
So you may have a daughter, and because you're not kind to her father, or because you want to badmouth her father, now she doesn't have a relationship with her father.
Yes.
But now she has daddy issues. Hello.
Yeah, that's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show.
And now she's attracting the wrong type of man. Now she's attracting the wrong type of man because of that.
Yeah.
It is another show.
It's a whole nother show.
With that too, but one thing at a time.
It is pertinent that each parent and children seek professional help. We say this a lot.
Yes.
And I know within the African American community, we're getting better, but we don't like to go to counseling, professional counseling. My preference is Christian counseling, pastoral counseling, because you need some bridges, you need some coping mechanisms to deal with all of this stuff. And you're not going to figure it out on your own. I don't care if you're brilliant. You're not going to figure out some of the emotional potholes that took place in your step family and blended family coming together, or even when you were young and they were hurt. So understand that one of the things that's very important to overcoming, my wife and I really believe this.
Yes. Overcoming the sickness of parental alienation that leads to divided loyalties within the blended or step family is forgiveness. Listen.
Wow.
I can tell you that when you forgive, when you practice the art of forgiveness, it frees you up. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for your ex-spouse or that, or that other parent. It's for you. So free yourself up so that God can move you forward.
Yes.
It takes time. We know it takes time. We know that. We're not telling you, just to let everything fly. No, but it does take time. But please exercise kindness, patience. By all means forgive. Once you forgive, I'm telling you, you free yourself. You won't be burdened down anymore. And then God can bless you with that Esther or that Boaz that you are meant to be with.
Listen, this has been a real show today. It's been riveting for us. And we stepped on some toes probably. We probably bruised some ankles. But before I leave, before we close out, we have a couple minutes. There's a passage of scripture that really defines unity and loyalty versus divided loyalties. There's a passage of scripture that we believe can silence the voice of divided loyalties. In the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verses 16, 17 says, "But Ruth replied, 'Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live.'" She's speaking to Naomi. Yes. "Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die. And there I will be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us." In order for your family to turn the corner from parental alienation and divided loyalties, get the attitude that Ruth had in her connection to Naomi. And I know you may think, man, you're out of there. You and your wife are out there. But listen, Ruth made a conscientious decision after going through all of the pain of losing her husbands, and Naomi lost her sons. And, and here's the reality of it. When you make a stand, when you take a stand, that I'm not going to let anything cause my family or my children to be buried with divided loyalties or to break them up regardless of what's going on, I'm going to take them and I'm going to make sure that our family has loyalty and that they stay together. They may not live together, but they're not going to be broken apart because of the things that goes on. So listen, we thank you for tuning in today. I'm Doc D.
I'm Michelle.
And we are the Mangums. Let's have a word of prayer before we close. Father, we thank you for this amazing day, this amazing show. Bless every hearer, bless every audience that listened to us. In the precious name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
We are so glad that we came through today to share divided loyalties.
Thank you for tuning in. We
Whose side are you on? Be on the Lord's side.
Yes.
Because he's the only side that can reconnect you.
Let's let that blended thing mesh together.
Blend unification. Again and again. You win.
It's all about bringing,
because there's a winner in
the
you.
different families together.
To win.
That means that's including your ex. That means bringing the blended families together so that everybody is meshing well together, so that the kids are healthy, so that when they have kids, your grandchildren will be healthy. So be in it to win it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have no more to say about that. That was well said by my beautiful wife, Michelle. Listen, have a blessed rest of this day,
Yes.
a tremendous week.
And thank you for tuning in. We really
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
for tuning in. God bless. I think this was really great.
Well, it's that time to end the show, but we've had an absolute blast.
Please come back and check us out on next Wednesday from 1:30 to 2:30, to where we will share some more insights on how the blended family can rise. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you. Peace be upon you.